I really, I really admire of what you do, and you're teaching people to do, like communication and find clarity in their message, and I have them better communicator, and I think the world is um, we need a lot of people with better listening skill, better able to engage the conversation, to make conversation a lot more meaningful. So your works really matter, and so that's why I approached to you and say, Kimberly, can you come to the show and share your journey? From the beginning. When you were young, what did you dream that when you grow up you do what kind of job, and why did you choose to be expert in communications, and then why did you choose to help people to become expert in communications also? So I think that will be a very beautiful and inspiring story. And I appreciate you spending your time, joy, and share your journey with us. All right.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a very long span of time. So that covers a lot of ground.
Hmm.
And I think in answer to your question about what interested me in communication when I was a child, um, I had a sister with some, I guess, what we would call now ADHD, a lot of hyperactivity, and she was always, I mean, right now in our country, like the U.S., I think we're all a little ADHD. So just because of all the hyperconnectivity and the impetus to keep going, and achieving. I happen to think that one of the silver linings of the pandemic actually is that we were all forced to stop. And in that stopping, we created some space to consider what was really important in our life and what we wanted to make in terms of the quality of our existence. What is most meaningful to us? What are our true priorities? Are they really, working these 70, 80-hour work weeks and amassing as much money as we possibly can? Or are we needing to create some space for relationships and family and connection and better communication? So I know for myself during the pandemic, I was doing a lot of in-person training work, and that all evaporated just within 2 weeks' time. Boom, nothing. And I understood suddenly, well, not suddenly, but it's become clear to me over many decades of my life that when something that looks like a disaster on the face of it, there's often a gift somewhere. And that aligns with the coaching program that I've undertaken that is put together by Shirzad Shamim called Positive Intelligence. And actually, that pandemic experience was one of the things that inspired me to pursue mindset coaching certification under that program. But one of a couple of for the first time in many years, I had hours of unstructured time. And right? And so I thought, wow, this could be amazing. This could be great. What have I always wanted to do that I couldn't because I didn't have enough time? And so I embarked on a book writing program. Seth Godin, who used to work for Fast Company and has published many business books, has also put together a program called Writing in Community. for people who have always wanted to publish a book, of which I was one. And this program goes across the globe. I'm sure there are people in Vietnam who are participating in it. And so I started writing a book on listening styles, which was something that I teach, which is kind of ironic. I mean, given, a lot of my work was comprised of communication, which fundamentally is about speaking to other people so that they can hear you. But the inverse of that is listening, and how we listen and what we intentionally listen for oftentimes determines exactly what we hear. So I dug into that. I taught workshops on that, and that's the basis of my book, Head, Hands, and Heart Listening in Coach Practice, which is going to be, it'll be published through Routledge and out this fall.
This fall.
So, yeah, this fall, October, maybe November.
Oh,
maybe
I
November.
hope it is
But,
October, because
yeah.
October is my birth month. So I hope the book will come out in October. So it's gonna be my celebration of my birthday also.
I'll let you know when it's out.
Sure.
So that was one of the things I embarked on. The other thing that I embarked on, one of my superpowers, I don't have many, but one of them is being open to new things. I get curious, and I don't start off thinking, oh, that's new and different and weird, so I'm not going to do it. I start off thinking, that's new and different and interesting. I want to find out more. Sometimes this leads me into places that waste my time, energy, effort, and money. But I got curious about a program that was developed for women to develop online products. One of the instructors reached out to me, and I got intrigued by it. And that resulted finally in an app that we called Nugget, which was a bookmarking app to retain the important parts of online meetings. So it reduces having to take copious notes, having to pull your attention away from the Zoom meeting to take notes. And anytime, I don't know about you, but anytime, whether I'm typing or writing, if I'm taking notes, my attention is pulled away from whatever you're saying. So I miss the next thing you say because I'm trying to get down the last thing you said. The problem I was trying to solve, or at least dig into, was, all the meetings, all my facilitation work suddenly went online, which was a whole new animal. And I understood, right, that at the same time that it vastly extends our reach across the globe, the actual depth and engagement and value of many of these interactions online becomes very thin. So, right, I thought, that's an interesting problem. And the guy who was running the class said, that's an interesting problem. And he talked me into taking the second session of the class. And together, we developed this application called Nugget, which recently sold to an outfit in Silicon Valley for a pretty nice price.
Congratulations.
Yeah, right? Thank you. But yeah, it's like, if it hadn't been for my ability to both say yes and make up for the fact that I have minimal tech skills, but I know how to tell a story, which goes into what you're talking about. I could tell a story, and I did really well. The Nugget lady became the one to beat in the pitch contests.
Wow.
Even though, you know, all these developers were like a fraction of my age, it became kind of a joke, but
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
I did all right.
See, being curious about how things going around us and get involved to something that we are not good at, but then have the mind to open, sometimes create opportunities that beyond our imagination, right? And
Right.
and that is the beautiful of curiosity too. But then when I look back at the people around us, these days, curiosity seems to be fancy for many, because if I look at my parents, the people that I know, my teachers, and a lot of them come to conclusions so quick. Even my daughter, yeah, and my daughter, I will always told her that, hey, have a mind that open to anything, because what you know is just what you know, and what if what fail you. So how can you open your mind for staying curious for this long, and definitely we continue being curiosity like this, and Kimberly?
Yes. That reminds me of something that I read recently
Mm.
about John F. Uh, Kennedy's handling of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Ah.
And he asked 3 questions of his crew. What do we know?
Mm.
What don't we know?
Mm.
And this goes to what you are saying. What do we think we know?
Mm.
And it's the last question, what do we think we know, that is particularly important, because that goes to our assumptions, right?
Yes.
Right? That's what we don't question. That's what we don't dig into. Our assumptions is that we already know that. So we're going to pay attention to what we don't know. And it's almost always a mistake. But yeah, assumptions. I think curiosity is really the way to dismantle our assumptions. I in my book on listening, even though I didn't want to tackle this topic because it feels huge to me, I had to say something about both curiosity and its inverse, at least to me, which is confirmation bias. We stop listening if we are only tuned into reinforcing what we already know. And I can see so much evidence in our country of how that has impacted our ability to communicate with each other. It's really been destructive to our ability to connect with each other. And it's feeding a certain dangerous impulse around the world to just reinforce what we know and then just blindly pitch forward. So I spent actually quite a lot of verbiage kind of exploring confirmation bias. And I have to also say that I'm positioning my book not as the voice of an expert, but as the voice of someone who's willing to explore and ask questions, right? And engage the reader in their own exploration of these things. To make it an exploration to try to find out more about what we think we know.
Kimberly,
So.
allow me to bring you all the way back to when you were a little girl, okay? And from what you're doing now, and I want to trace back when you were very, very young, and what did you think that one day you're gonna become?
Wow. I loved to read from an early age. My family at times was pretty chaotic, very loving, but pretty chaotic, and there wasn't a lot of listening going on. And I found that books were really my escape. And when I was in elementary school, I remember an exercise that my teacher gave us. Just as a way, she would do this every week as a way to learn spelling words. She would give us like a random assortment of 7 words. And we would have to put all 7 words, and they had no relationship to each other, but they have all 7 words into a short story. And that was our homework. And I found this assignment to be so much fun. I had such fun, and I got a reputation in 3rd grade as being a really good writer because I could write really funny material using the 7 words. So even though this is my first book, there's something about it that feels like I'm honoring the voice and the knowing of that 9-year-old girl in writing this book.
How beautiful, huh? Now, now you have all the dogs already, and then reconnecting the dog backtracks it back to when you were 9 years old of when creating passion. Since then, something that inside of you been calling for that many years to get it done. So congratulations, and we really admire that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question about this, listening. We all have ears, right? But then many of us are hearing but not listening. And magically, there's no education out there that teaching us on how to become a better listener, right? And out of everything that you can write, can do, why you chose to write about, this basic but not basic anymore skill?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm an introvert. And introverts spend, I want to say, more time listening than our more extroverted friends and loved ones. So that's one thing. But a couple years ago, I did some work for my state's Department of Environmental Protection. And they had hired me to do some communication workshops. And they particularly wanted me to focus on teams of field operators that were having one-on-one conversations with landowners who were doing something to their land that was in violation of some environmental law. So these were pretty hostile conversations, and they were not going well. The field operators were sometimes very frightened. These were one-on-one conversations. Sometimes these landowners had big dogs, they had guns, it was not good, and they were not making any headway. Most importantly, they were not being able to communicate clearly to the landowner that he needed to change his plans. I will say they were largely but not always. Sometimes they were women. So they hired me to come in as a communication specialist. But as I talked and got some stories from these field operators, I started to get curious because it was clear that what they were listening for in these conversations were opportunities to share more information. figures in data and knowledge. They are steeped in it. They are scientists. They are experts in their fields. But I think we're all starting to understand that information alone does not change minds. So I needed to train them not necessarily to communicate better, but to listen for something different, to listen for what is the landowner, what's the dream the landowner is trying to build? Why does he want to pave over this section of wetlands, right? He wants to build a playground for his grandkids. Oh, okay, that's something we can relate to. Let's find a different place on the property to build that playground that's not in violation of the statute. That way, you honor the person, what the person is actually trying to accomplish, rather than putting the kibosh on all his plans and turning yourself into an enemy rather than an ally.
Wow.
Right? So the question becomes how to build alliance with people in these sorts of conversations. And I started to get really curious about this whole dynamic, about what we listen for. And I remember there was a Waldorf model of early childhood education that's based on what we know as whole body listening. But it's divided into head, hands, and heart listening. I could not find anything that applied these concepts to adult learning. So I thought, what would happen if we figure out what our natural proclivities as listeners are? And maybe we can start to build awareness about what we're missing. So that's what the premise of the book is. And I put a lot of my own personal experience into the book. I started out assuming that I was a heart listener. I'm compassionate, I'm empathic. A lot of the work that I do involves empathy and tuning into other people's stories, tuning into the information beneath the words. But while I was doing that work for the Department of Environmental Protection, my daughter was going through a really rocky adolescence. She was a teenager, and every evening we would be sitting out on the deck, and she would be crying about something else that happened at school, and this went on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I found myself, after a while, kind of itching to ask the question, what are we going to do about it? Let's do something about it, right?
Yep.
Whereas my husband, who I know to be an adept head listener, he seemed to have infinite capacity to just, hand her a Kleenex box and say, oh, that sucks. And just, to keep this up and just listen time after time. And when I would finally interject, well, what are we going to do about it? She would turn to me and go, Mom, I just need you to listen. So that taught me an interesting lesson. And I devised an assessment that is in the book to have people figure out what their first and second primary and secondary modalities are as far as listening. And for me, I figured out I'm more of a hands listener. I like to problem solve. I like to take action. In fact, when you asked me what kind of day that I had today, I spent most of my day paying for mistakes that I had made because I was taking things too fast. So, yeah, more of a hands listener, whereas, and hands listening is primarily primarily focused on the future. What's going to happen? How can I make that happen? How can I do this a different way? Heart listening is very much in the present, very much tuned into what's happening right here and right now, tuning into what's going on right in front of me, and really tuning into facial expression, vocal tone, gestures, body language, what's happening underneath the spoken words. That's very much involved in the present. Head listening is oftentimes involved in the past. What's already been proven, what's already known, what are the facts that have already been established. So what's happened in the past? What kinds of patterns are already in place? So we need all three of these. Most of us are not adept in all three, but it's well worth knowing the modality that we're weakest in. And for me, unfortunately, it's head listening. But fortunately, my husband is a good head listener. And when I decide to partner and collaborate on projects, I make sure that I have an adept head listener in the room, because they will pick up on stuff that I, as a hands listener, am not. So it starts to become interesting. It starts to I know that when I'm focused on how I'm listening, that I'm slowing myself down and I'm paying attention and expanding my radar about what I'm perceiving. My perceptual radar is definitely being expanded when I slow myself down and listening. There's actually a chapter in the book that I took a risk in putting in, but I started to get curious again about how listening really serves certain high stakes professions. And so I chapter 10 is about listening to save your life. Listening as a skill in conflict negotiation. Listening is a skill when you're trying to talk somebody out of taking his own life. Listening as a skill when you're a CIA operative going undercover. It's listening on steroids, really, because you have to. Listening when you're in danger, when you're in a trapped situation. What happens and how you have to amplify your listening skills in order to survive. So that again, I'm obviously not a conflict hostage negotiator or a CIA operative, but I'm looking at this as an opportunity to really explore and ask questions and dig in to some other people's experiences.
Wow, we watch a lot of that in the movies also. Why with the blind eyes and then the main actor keep counting how many turn left, how many right turn, how many all the noises out there for him, him or her to try to figure out where the location might sounds like. So I'm intrigued. I would definitely look forward for your books in October or November and read for that. Okay, I think that the like not only learning how to get better at listening, but I'm also curious about the story that you put on into I want to see where's a Kymberly with the hand listening skills put everything onto this kind of book, and where your husband as a head listener add values to help you to see the things that that's missing in there. So that would be wonderful. Kymberly, I got a privilege that I am quite close to a lot of business leaders who are so beautiful in the mind, the heart, and the hands also. and they came to me a lot of time to share, the issue that they are having, with their colleagues and stuff like that. They knew that the organization wants the leadership team to be seen at one, and going together and things like that. But then for the, like now is that the head listening actually having the issue, because for a very long time they've been working as silos, separated in
Yes,
and division and
exactly.
stuff. And every time
Right.
that they came into a meeting, they want to be, really really giving their best love and care for their counterparts. But every time that just a little word that's said, then the whole listening, they told me that becoming a totally different story. And it, something in their head telling them that, try to pay attention to the listening in the different, like temperature, different, and
Mm.
behavior, and the whole pure intention at the beginning gone wild. And so how can we help the people to eradicate, or alter their thinking, and then reorganize their listening behavior, so that they're not gonna pick up on words, they're not gonna rely too much on negative behavior, negative stories or bias that they are having, and working toward a common goal, Kimberly.
Mm.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, these are really good questions. How can we get people to, you know, in listening to what you just put forward, it occurred to me that one of our underutilized skills is extending compassion to each other
Mm.
and to ourselves. You
Mm.
know, we are not perfect beings, and there are actual gifts in imperfection,
Mm.
um, which, if we know what those gifts are, we can approach our life with a little more relaxation
Mm.
and a sense of humor that allows us to build trust
Mm.
with the people that we are connecting with.
Mm.
And I think building trust is really something that it's absolutely essential for leaders.
Mm.
If the people underneath you, the people who work for you, don't trust you as a human being,
Mm.
there are limits to how effective you can be in that role,
Mm.
right?
Yep.
And heart listening in particular is absolutely essential for building trust. When people feel and know that they are listened to deeply,
Mm.
this came up in my research with hostage negotiation.
Mm.
Um, the first the first thing to do is to extend empathy to the individual that's in crisis,
Mm.
and to do it in such a way that you have to put yourself out on a limb. You have to guess what the person is thinking.
Mm.
But if you can articulate it accurately, then suddenly that person feels seen, that person feels heard. And in a business situation, not a lot of time is created for that sort of thing.
Mm.
And the assumption is that whatever baggage you may be bringing into the operation, you need to leave that outside the door.
Mm.
But we're human beings and we don't. And our world, our species, is in real crisis right now
Mm.
for a lot of different reasons. And it's very difficult for most of us to effectively leave that baggage outside the door.
Mm.
And even if we manage to do it at work, it's going to show up hugely in other areas of our life that are important to us.
Mm.
So, extending compassion to ourselves and to others is enormously helpful. And I think that's where effective listening begins.
So how these are amazing people who have a very good heart for the people, for the teams that they are responsible for, and then but they snapped at that moment. And if we want to help them to build that compassionate muscle again, in and then like compassionate proof, right? For them not to be not to be penetrated by the negative words inside their head that derail them from the common goals that they want to they want to head on. So how do you think that we can have to rebuild that compassionate for our people?
Implemented pretty effectively. It's not a new concept, but
What was that again? Sorry,
have
I
you?
missed it for about 3 seconds. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's not a new concept, and you've probably heard of appreciative inquiry.
Mm.
Yeah. So this is essentially the question about what's going right. What are we doing well?
Mm.
What's working? How can we amplify it?
Mm.
You know, who's responsible for these things working so well?
Mm.
And how do we celebrate those people?
Mm.
How do we express our appreciation? I think really effective leaders understand and are able to articulate the value of each of the people who make up their teams.
Mm.
If they don't have time to do it themselves, then they value it enough to assign that to someone else to dig up.
Mm.
The assignment being, I need to be able to articulate 3 skills that each of my team members brings to the equation.
Mm.
So, I've got a team of 50 to 75.
Mm.
I don't know them all personally,
Mm.
but you've got a month to bring me back the information I need so that I can articulate what those things are.
Mm.
So I could look each of these people in the eyes and say, thank you so much.
Mm.
You are a vital element to our team. These are the skills you bring, and I appreciate you being here.
Mm.
That is such a rare experience in working life.
Mm.
I
It's
think
very
it's
rare.
in my work history, I think it's happened maybe twice,
Mm.
and it was enough to make time stop for a second.
Mm.
I was so shocked, So, along with compassion, the willingness to articulate and express appreciation,
Mm.
and to start asking questions about what's going right and how can we build on those strengths.
Mm.
I think those are key questions to counter what seems to be a very sad human tendency to focus on the negative.
Mm. Kimberly, I want to ask you one question about appreciation and recognition. And this comes to a long conversation that I had with a few people, okay, not in Vietnam only, but in the region also. So we see organizations start doing a lot of public recognition for the staff, for the little things they do, and of course that is wonderful. That that's wonderful the way that they do it, so that the small people, the young people, the small voice in the organization start to be recognized and be heard, right? uh, but then we want to do it, we ask ourselves these questions. If we keep recognize people for small little things, okay, would that create a behavior that people also be take pride on small achievements only, instead, and then not having that, not not having an eyesight for something bigger, something more important. And because if we keep, celebrate small little wins, and that create the chemistry and the feelings of being recognized, and that also addictive. We don't want them to be addictive to small things, and then they would
Right.
and then and they will not build the muscle ready themselves for bigger things. And
Right. I think you're talking, I think what I understand you're saying
mm,
is building in a certain sense of complacency.
yep.
Yeah.
Mm,
And just going after the low hanging fruit.
yep.
And thinking, oh yeah, that's enough.
Yep.
Yes.
And that happened
Um,
to my personal life also. At
oh,
home, if we need to reward our children for something that worthwhile. Otherwise, if we keep rewarding them
yes.
for small little achievement, then we build them smaller than what they could be becoming. And
Yes.
so I
That's
don't
right.
want to reward a system that is you know making people smaller than they could be could become.
Yes.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Mm.
Um, I don't know if the companies that you work for have much in the way of formal mentoring programs. Um, it's kind of informally utilized in a number of businesses, but I think it's happening more and more in the U.S.
Mm.
that companies will start to actively engage people in mentoring
Mm.
others in their department that are coming up. And part of good mentoring is instilling in people a sense of what they could be
Mm.
that maybe they had not even imagined for themselves,
Mm.
but to start building a new vision of themselves. It's interesting you would bring up this question because there's actually a chapter in my book
Oh.
that profiles somebody that I worked with who was a social worker and very, very steeped in excellent heart listening skills, but really struggled to take care of her own life, really struggled to envision her capabilities outside of taking care of other people.
Mm.
So yeah, that was an interesting journey for
Mm.
her and for me to develop, to start to develop and expand her perception of what she herself was capable of.
Ah.
Right? Sometimes we don't exactly use our powers of imagination very effectively.
Mm.
To imagine larger than what's right in front of us.
Mm.
I know for myself, I struggle with this too, and so I'm glad you brought this up because this is something that individuals struggle with and companies struggle with.
Mm.
Yeah, the way to instill a personal and organizational vision into people that are working for you.
Yeah.
I know that oftentimes people will kind of default to, oh, we'll create a lot of competition. Right? We'll pit people against each other and then they'll get better. And sometimes for certain things and certain departments, personalities, that works great.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, the benefits are not always what we hope.
Yep.
Some people shut down. Some people get tired. Some people get resentful. That tends to breed and can breed a lot of interpersonal friction.
Mm.
So I've become a believer in encouraging people to expand the vision of what they themselves are capable of.
So the power of imagination for them.
The power of imagination. Exactly.
Yep, and that was the talk that me and a lot of friends, we had after work, and we say, okay, if we don't envision ourselves big enough, then we're gonna be able, do small thing all the time and be happy doing small thing. And then the problem is there's nothing wrong with that also, as long as you're happy, that matters, right? But then, you can
Yeah.
be happier and you can be happy and still doing something bigger. So we don't want to be in the fine line of, misleading people and then disguise people for something that really really bit beyond their, their capacity or something, like what we
That's
call
right.
in this region. There's a lot of leaders that talk to you about a lot of good things, organization, but the foundation is not there. It's not real. That's not authentic conversation where basically it just want to get the buy-ins from you and I want you to follow and doing things like that. But we want to make sure that, if I know that there is potential in my wife, then how can I help her to see that bigger picture of what she could become, and break the ice, break the glass to become same for our daughters. Start small inside the family and then expanding to the people that we know outside, and stop celebrate for something that maybe making us smaller than
Yeah.
we potentially we could be. Kimberly,
Yeah.
I really see that you do a lot of thinking on the work that you do, the time that you spend, and this is the area that we always love to explore. And my wife and I are the big believers in in the capacity of human beings right now in thinking actually is declining, it's not increasing. So every time we got a chance to talk to somebody that have a depth understanding of life, of works, of human connections, we want to explore how you think, how you spend time for thinking, how you force yourself to think, to explain, to make clarifications of things happening around you. Can you share the secret of what Kymberly Dakin is doing in terms of thinking?
Oh, wow. That's a very big concept. Uh, I would say that mindfulness
Mindfulness.
is a big piece.
Mm,
And I struggle with it. As a hands listener, I am always wanting to go and do.
mm,
But I know that if I start my day, um, if I start my day with certain activities that bring a degree of mindfulness
mm.
into my morning, then the rest of the day goes much better.
Yep.
So I've become a believer in ritual,
Mm,
right? And I used to associate ritual with religion, and I think a lot of people do, but I started again getting curious about the things that I want to do every day that ground me
mm,
and make me feel like I can settle my mind long enough to be effective in my writing, to explore certain things, to get curious about certain things. So I know that I need to meditate,
mm.
even if I struggle with it, which I do. uh, I know that I need to get outside some,
Mm,
even if it's just 10-minute walk. To be in nature for just a little while is very helpful for me. I also know that I love the whole ritual around making tea.
mm,
Many of my fellow Americans are coffee drinkers, but I have lately really come to enjoy tea. The taste of it, the brewing of it, the whole ritual around it is something that I really enjoy. And so no matter what happens in the rest of my day, if I've got time to meditate, walk in nature, do some writing, journaling, writing on my book, and making my tea, I feel like the quality of my day is hugely enhanced.
Wow.
And there are mornings, when I've got to get up because I've got to go work with a client. I've got to go work at a hospital. But I've learned that means I've got to get up earlier because I've got to get those things in to the day.
Wow.
So that I can be present to the rest of my experience.
It's like preparing the day so that a good day will come, right?
Exactly. Oh, I like that. Yes.
Yep.
Preparing the day so that a good day will come.
Yep. I think that I really enjoy the ritual part that you share, because that is the area that a lot of us also are missing. So we get up in the day so hurry, get into a busy life, and that hurriness will push everything into the edge. We make the meetings become a burden instead of a
Yes.
instead of a chance to celebrate. Going to work is, and if we can slow down a little bit, if we can get up a little bit, like you say, and re-prepare so that we're gonna celebrate everything in the goodness together, that would be wonderful. And thanks so much for sharing that, Kimberly. I want to ask you the last question for today. And we've been exploring your childhood, your works that you've been doing now. And we know that there's a book coming in October, November. And is there anything else exciting that Kimberly would like to share to our audience that you are doing in the future?
Well, tomorrow I'm going to speak to a group on the other side of the country via Zoom, of course, on communication and public speaking. And I've decided that the topic of it is going to be, I'm calling it Ditch the Pitch, the elevator pitch. And I'm going to introduce the concept of a 3-part story instead. So you share something personal about yourself, whatever that may be, whatever comes up for you. And then you share something good that happened recently. And then you share something that you want. So I have about 15 minutes in this section tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be fun. I just I posted the blog on LinkedIn, and I also posted it on my website, kymdakin.com. So I would love for people to engage with that and play with it, and tell me what you think.
Absolutely, I will do that. I'm a big fan of assessment also. So I think that in the book that you are opening on, and you publish it on October, November, I will look at the assessment to see which type of listener I am, which type of listener my family members are, so that we can leverage each other's strength and we can collaborate to build something beautiful together. Kimberly, thank you so much for spending your evening with me and the audience here in this part of the world. So we are all the ways west of you, right? East side of you.
That's right.
Yeah. So we wish you all the best, and and it's really lovely to see you. And I hope one day, if I travel to America to visit our daughters, and we could be meeting one another for a cup of tea, not a cup of coffee.
Yes, we'll have a cup of tea.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
You're
This
very
has been
welcome.
delightful.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.